Hill sponsors Martin vs Joshua on Sky Sports Box Office.
James Holder, Frightful TV, in association with Matt Clean's Jim Marbar. Quite fortunate enough to be joined by John Dennen from Boxing News. Funniest man on Twitter. We've got to get to convey some of this humour across to our viewers. How are you, John?
I'm good. I'm pretty sure I'm not the funniest man on Twitter.
I'd say it goes Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, John Dennen. They are the three legendary names of Twitter on my Twitter feed.
I don't think anyone has given me such a high compliment.
There we go. No, genuinely, I'm quite intrigued and sort of always entertained by your social media, mate.
I think it's just 'cause my life is so ridiculous. These situations are forced upon me.
Indeed. We're here, obviously here for big fight week. Anthony Joshua champion for the IBF World title against Charles Martin. Firstly, how do you see this fight playing out?
I think Charles Martin is an unknown quantity. He's an unknown quantity because we haven't seen much of him. So there's not that much to go on. His world title fight was over in 3 rounds in those bizarre circumstances. He beat Tom Dallas, so I was actually ringside for that. So he beat Tom Dallas in a round, which he was expected to do. But I thought, even then, it wasn't that much of an efficient 1 round knockout. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know exactly what he's going to be like on Saturday because I think he's unproven. In a way, I think Joshua's more proven. He's got the amateur pedigree for sure, in a way that Martin doesn't have. He's fought pretty good people for 15 fights as a pro. And from what I don't think Joshua is that, I don't think southpaws are that much of a problem for Joshua. So I could see Joshua winning this in style on Saturday, but maybe Martin will unearth something we haven't seen yet and make it a harder fight than I expect.
We've seen sort of Martin's team thinking if they can get Joshua into deep waters, maybe even to them sort of championship rounds, that it'll be a different sort of fight. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I suppose they kind of have to say that in that Martin has had more rounds under his belt. He's had more fights. He's gone, he's gone longer with people. But then maybe that's because he's not as good as Joshua. Zambano Love went sort of 10 rounds with Martin, and Joshua took him out, very, very easily, really, in only 2 rounds.
We've seen Shannon Briggs sort of invade the David Hay press conference. We're hoping he turns up today. I don't know quite what the situation is. Shannon Briggs, good for UK boxing, bad for boxing, in your opinion?
I think the worry is it's potentially bad for Shannon Briggs. He's a great personality. I really enjoyed watching all the stuff on IFL. I thought his meeting with Eddie Hearn that you guys filmed was really interesting to see. The way a promoter sort of talks to a fighter. I think there's probably a place for Shannon Briggs in a in a fairly matched fight on an undercard. I think that's welcome. He's a big personality. I wouldn't like him to see him get one of these big names he's talking about because it's all fun until someone gets hurt, and he's done nothing to deserve a fight with Joshua or Tyson Fury. But we saw him at the David Hay press conference the other day. Could David Hay fight Shannon Briggs? Briggs is probably better than Arnold that David Hay is fighting. But then I'd worry that he gets knocked out heavily. When he fought Vitaly Klitschko, that was a long time ago now. What was
6 years?
Something like that. Maybe 4?
Maybe a bit longer, yeah. 6 years, I think.
Is it 6? It's 2010. Yeah, so that was sort of an ugly fight in the end. He took a real pasting. And he may be in good shape for someone who's 44, but he's not going to be better than he was back when he fought Klitschko. So you do worry.
Anthony Joshua comes through this as the bookies expect him to do. Are we then looking at him fighting fringe world guys, or is he going to be, in your opinion, in there with the big hitters at the heavyweight division?
I think he should be patient and wait for the likes of Fury or Hay. Have a huge year next year. If you win, if you win the world title, any anti-Joshua fight is going to be huge. And they're guys in the IBF top 10 who are realistic, who are sort of good opponents for Joshua to continue developing as a boxer. He's not the finished article yet, and I can just imagine how good he's going to be when he is. So why not fight the winner of Joseph Parker, Carlos Takam? That's a really good fight. And there are other people lurking about there in the IBF top 10. I'd rather see him fight sort of 2 defences, and then worry about those huge unification fights. Like Wilder and Fury have to be on the radar, but personally, why not leave that to have a huge 2017?
We've also got world champion Lee Selby on the radar against Eric Hunter. Gone a little bit under the radar this fight. It's obviously his mandatory. Big fight. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, like you say, all the sort of attention has been taken up by Joshua Mime. That's such a big fight over here. So I think Hunter's going to be a tough fight, going to come to fight. But I do think Lee Selby should be too good for him. I do think Lee Selby is a class act, and hopefully, being in London at the O2, he'll have that sort of edge that was maybe lacking against Montiel last time out.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about George Groves v David Brophy. Undefeated fighter in David Brophy. I've been quite fortunate enough to see a few of his fights up in Scotland. How big of a night and how important is this for George Groves?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those fights that has banana skin written all over it. Like George Groves, he's on the undercard. You might expect it to be one of those easy fights, but Brophy's rough and tough. And will keep on coming, won't he? I don't think he's as technically slick as Groves can be, but if he drags Groves into a fight, it could be a real problem. I think he's pretty heavy-handed, Brophy. I haven't actually seen him box for a while. So that'll be interesting, if he starts landing some real punches on George Groves, how Groves reacts to that will be interesting to see. So,
and is Groves, in my opinion, your opinion, is Groves up for these fights? He's obviously not too long since he suffered defeat to Badu Jack. He's obviously looking at world level.
Yeah.
Is he mentally up for a fight like this?
I think it's one of those things. I think it's really hard when you've been at that top level against those world-class guys to sort of come back down and rebuild at sort of domestic level. Domestic level opponents rebuild to go again. So I think it's hard, and at least at the Copper Box he was like the main event, whereas this fight is sort of buried on the undercard. So I think it could be tricky. It's going to be, there's often a sense of looming jeopardy whether it arrives or not when Groves is fighting. So it could be a nervous fight for George Groves fans.
But on top of that, you've got an undefeated fighter in David Brophy. Doesn't know how to lose, so to speak. This potentially biggest night of his career coming into this fight, so it would mean so much to him to get a W over George Groves, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And even if he does better than expected, that's going to really sort of enhance, it's really going to enhance his reputation. He'll be the guy who gave Groves a hard fight. So yeah, I wonder, we might see a sort of Kenny Anderson type fight that Groves had a few years ago. Could be a bit of a war.
I'll give you a tenner if you mention Kenny Anderson to Groves.
What's going to happen to me?
I just don't think him and Kenny had the best sort of rapport, did they, before?
No.
I haven't spoken to him about Kenny in a long time, to be fair. Might mention that later.
Right, edit this bit out of the video then. I haven't made any jokes.
I was thinking this. I built you
sorry.
up as like a comedy genius, and it's just been flatlined.
I know, the pressure is too much for me. I'm better on Twitter. I've got time to sort of craft my material.
Yes. Time to Google what funny things and that.
Just copy and paste other people's amusing observations and pretend they're mine.
I make it through life like this. Keep up the good work.
Cheers. Thank you.
Willingham Hill sponsors Martin vs Joshua on Sky Sports Box Office.